This is 25 lessons that I've realized since turning 25. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Matt, and I'm a 25-year-old management consultant living and working in New York City. But without further ado, let's get into it. Number 1. A crush is just a lack of information. This doesn't just apply to relationships. Anything that you really want in your life right now, anything that you think you really, really want right now, and that you're fantasizing over to an irrational degree is what you could consider a crush. And oftentimes you're going to have rosy colored lenses about, oh, that fancy new job that you really want, or oh, that person that you really want to be with, or oh, that trip that I really want to take. That's going to solve all my problems. No, a crush is just a lack of information. And what you'll soon realize is that that thing is not all that it's chalked up to be. And the more you actually experience it, the more you're going to realize that the infatuation that you have with that thing or that person or that job is just a lack of information, because everything has downsides. And the sooner that you realize that infatuation is often just a lack of information, the better off and the more happier you'll be. Number 2, nobody cares. The spotlight effect is a real thing where people think that everybody is watching their every move. And whether it's giving a presentation or posting something on social media or being scared to take a first step towards a goal that you've been thinking about, the truth is very few people in the world are actually paying attention. And the ones who are not nearly as invested in that thing as you are. Everybody is going through a equally rich story of life, and they don't have time to really even care that much about what you're doing. And so you might think that you're the center of the world and that everybody is watching you, but in reality, very few people are. The sooner you realize this, the easier it'll be for you to take risks and not be afraid to make mistakes. Number 3, staying power is a superpower. Over time, I've also come to realize that staying power, aka longevity, is much more underrated in today's day and age. It seems like in today's day and age, commitment is something that is valued less. And so whether it be in relationships or with jobs, like people nowadays are much more inclined to jump jobs, to give up on things when issues come up. And it's gotten to the point where, honestly, it's sort of a flex when you see someone who has been working at their company for a really long time, or somebody who has been in a relationship for a really long time. I think there's something to be said about being able to stay committed to a goal or to a pursuit or to a person. And as I enter a stage of life where I'm really trying to get straight on what my priorities should be, I've come to realize that although there is value in trying different things, there is also a lot of value in committing to something and staying with it over the long term, as opposed to just constantly jumping around. Number 4, nobody has it all figured out. This kind of goes without saying, but as a kid and as you grow up, I think it's natural to think that adults have everything all figured out, and that your teachers, your professors, your parents, your bosses at work, that they all have their lives and their plans figured out. And in reality, the older you get and once you enter the workforce, you begin to realize that nobody really knows what they're doing. Now, I don't mean nobody has goals, but the amount of control you actually have over the outcome of your goals is quite limited. And many people go through life not really knowing what they even want. So everybody is just sort of figuring it out. And I think the sooner you realize this, the less harsh you'll be on yourself, which is something that I wish I had been a bit more when I was younger, is less hard on myself whenever I failed or whenever I didn't measure up to some goal that I had set my mind to. Number 5, get going, then get good. A lot of times we don't even start pursuing the goals that we want because we're so paralyzed by the fear of what other people think, and also the fact that we feel so overwhelmed by this enormous goal in our mind. Like, for example, when I started this YouTube channel less than a year ago, I had zero background in filming or YouTube, and I'm a pretty introverted person, and so I don't really like being the center of attention. And of course I was worried about what other people would think when I started posting content. But I decided that the approach I would take to this channel is that I would get going first before I got good. Because in some ways, the only way that you're going to get good at something is if you try and fail. I think it takes a lot of courage for somebody to be willing to fail. But honestly, if you ever want to be really, really good at something, in anything, whether it's your career or a sport or a skill, the only way you're ever going to get good at it is if you're willing to look stupid while doing it in the beginning, because everybody who's an expert in their field started out at some point as a beginner. Number 6, life is too short to live on somebody else's terms. I know this might sound kind of cliche, but after living on this earth for 25 years, I've really come to understand what it means. And honestly, it kind of goes back to the spotlight effect earlier. Nobody cares. Nobody really cares what you're doing with your life. Yes, maybe the people closest to you will care, but 99% of people, and the people that you think you want to impress, they do not really care about you. They don't care what happens to you, and it's only you that's going to bear the consequences of your actions in life. And so don't live on somebody else's terms. Don't live according to how other people think that you should be living. Figure out for yourself what you actually want and then go after it. Number 7, get clear on what your values actually are. The sooner that you can understand what you actually value in life and what you actually want your life to look like, the easier it's going to be to actually execute on those goals. A lot of the time, people don't really even understand what they want because they're so confused with what other people want for them, whether it's their parents, society, or their friends and family. They never take the time to sit down and reflect on their experiences and try to figure out what they actually want. And in turn, they get values prescribed to them and they end up really unhappy. Get clear on your values first so that you can start pursuing the kind of life that you really want. Number 8, prestige matters, but don't let it consume you. It's an unfortunate truth, but the world does value prestige, and although prestige is not a perfect indicator of whether or not a person will be successful, it certainly makes life a lot easier and opens up a lot of doors. And for somebody who doesn't know you, they're going to judge you based on the facts, including what school you went to or what job you work or what background you come from. And so, although prestige is not everything, it does have an impact on how people around you perceive you, and how people perceive you influences how you in turn perceive yourself. And so it does matter to an extent, but you shouldn't let prestige define your personal worth. Just because you don't have a prestigious job or come from a prestigious background doesn't mean that you're any less capable than somebody who went to Harvard or worked at Goldman Sachs. Prestige is often very useful in the beginning of your career because it opens a lot of doors and opportunities, but after you figure out what you actually want in life, you shouldn't let prestige influence your decisions at the expense of what you really want. Number 9, it gets harder and harder to make new friends. When you're in school, you're sort of forced to hang out with people, and you're put in a lot of these institutionalized social situations where it's really, really easy to make friends with people. But as soon as you graduate college and you start working as an adult in the real world, you soon quickly realize how difficult it actually is to maintain friendships and to make new friends. Because everybody's really busy, and if you're like me and you live in a big city like New York, everybody always has ambitious goals that they're going after, everybody has plans going on, and it becomes really easy to fall out of friendships that you used to have that were really easy to maintain in college because you would just see each other around campus. And instead, what you have to do is you have to put a lot more effort into maintaining your current friendships and into meeting new people. This is something that I'm personally guilty of and that I recognize is an area for improvement. But recognize that once you start working as an adult, the onus is really on you to reach out to friends and to set up time with people that you truly care about. Number 10, don't pedestalize those who are older than you. I might get a little bit of hate for saying this, but while people who are older do tend to have more experience, age does not always translate into more wisdom. What I mean by that is wisdom often comes through life experience, not necessarily just drifting through life. And so, while generally it is true that people older than you will have more life experience, you shouldn't pedestalize anybody who is older than you or think that their opinions are 100% correct. Because again, people are human and everybody's life is a little bit different. And so their perspective, although may be valid from their life viewpoint, may not necessarily be applicable to your situation. Similarly, don't pedestalize people who are in career positions that are higher than you. For example, when I was a student trying to get into investment banking, a lot of students would pedestalize bankers and treat them like they were gods. When in reality, an investment banking analyst is just a 22-year-old kid who's struggling to get enough sleep and to just manage their extremely busy lifestyle and intense job. Yes, it's good to have role models and to look up to people, but I think there's a fine line between treating somebody like a role model and pedestalizing them. Number 11, move your body. Movement and exercise is so important, and as young people, we often take for granted our healthy bodies, but as you age, you begin to realize that health is a depreciating asset, and if you don't make use of your body, you will lose that asset. And so making sure to hit the gym or exercise at a regular cadence throughout the week, and even just get some movement in during the day when you can, like taking a walk outside, will go a long way to not just improving your physical health, but also your mood and your mental health as well, which directly bleeds into all other aspects of your life. Number 12, hug your mom. Your parents aren't going to be around forever, and as kids, you kind of take them for granted sometimes, but as you age, you begin to realize that one of the most valuable things that you can have is a good relationship with your parents. And even if you don't have a really great relationship with your parents, I think it's important to spend time with your parents when you can, because they also went through their 20s and may have experienced similar challenges as what you're currently facing. And as I said, they won't be around forever, so make the most of your time. And as you grow older, there's less and less opportunities for you to actually see your parents. Maybe you only go home on the holidays now, and so you only see them a couple times a year. And so just something that I'm personally trying to do is just make the most of that time with them while I can. Number 13, too much structure is mundane, but too much spontaneity is chaos. I'm personally a creature of habit, and so I love having a very structured routine and sticking to it. But what I've come to realize is that when you have too much structure in your life and not enough spontaneity, you begin to start feeling like a robot, and you feel like life is mundane, it's so boring, there's no point to it. And it's because you haven't been taking the time to really live your life and just enjoy some of the randomness that happens. And whether that means you should plan a trip with friends to travel somewhere new, or even just check out a new cafe, or try a new activity in the city. Introducing some spontaneity into your life is going to keep things a little bit more interesting. But on the other hand, you don't want to have too much spontaneity, because too much spontaneity is just chaos. Number 14, the joy is in the journey, not the destination. As a very goal-oriented individual, and as someone who has always had a mind for striving towards achieving as much as I can in life, what I've come to realize over time is that the joy is often in the pursuit of the goal itself, not the actual achievement of the goal. Once you do achieve a very big goal, you often do feel very satisfied, but that satisfaction doesn't last. And what you realize is you immediately move the goalposts and you begin to think about what the next goal should be. So, for example, when I landed my job in investment banking, I was so thrilled, but then immediately after that, I was thinking about what I should do after investment banking. And a lot of my peers were also thinking about, oh, we should start thinking about recruiting for private equity because that's the promised land. And I've noticed this pattern throughout my whole life, in college, even in high school, how people would always be working towards the next thing, but the moment that they achieved that thing that they've wanted, they already switched the goalposts and they were thinking about the next thing after that. And so I think the joy is actually in the pursuit of the goal and in the process of learning and becoming better as a person and developing that skill, not the actual achievement of that goal. Number 15, don't try to change people. What I've also come to realize over the last 25 years is people will always have the urge to change someone else in their life. When they see someone who's in trouble or someone who is struggling or someone that they disagree with or had an argument with, they have this really overwhelming urge to change them. This happens especially in romantic relationships where you're dating someone and you don't like one thing about them or some behavior about them, and you try to essentially change them from who they are. Now, it's all good-natured, but the problem is, in many instances, people do not really change that much over their life, and it's futile in many senses to try and fundamentally change the way a person behaves, especially if they've been that way for a very long time. And it's not your responsibility to change someone. It is their responsibility alone to make the intrinsic choice to change themselves. It should not be your burden to change them, and what you should do instead is try to accept them for who they are, rather than push them to be someone that they are not. Number 16, happiness shouldn't be your goal. I know this is kind of a hot take, but I think that the problem with saying that your goal is happiness is that you're inherently putting happiness beyond you, and you're saying that your current state is not happy. So when you say that, oh, I just want to be happy, well, you're telling yourself that I'm not happy right now, and you're constantly trying to come up with things that will make you happy, when in reality, I think what most people actually want is fulfillment and a sense of belonging in their life and a sense of purpose. It's not necessarily the things that people often equate to happiness, like not having to work or pursuing things that give them pleasure in life. If we can learn to be happy with our current situation and grateful for what we have, then I think it's much easier to find fulfillment and purpose in our life, rather than chasing after cheap pleasures. Number 17, the people who actually matter won't care what you do for work. The people in your life who actually love you and who care about you, whether it's your family or your significant other or your friends, are the people that oftentimes care the least about prestige and achievements in your life. And it's ironic that we often put so much pressure on ourselves to achieve so much, when in reality, the people that actually matter in our life wouldn't care less whether we achieved that or not. And if they did, then you might want to revisit the quality of your relationships with them. But I think realizing that it's okay to fail or to not achieve a certain goal, and your relationships with those people close to you will be unaffected, is a really freeing feeling that gives you a little bit less pressure when you are in a high stakes situation. Just knowing that gives me comfort and makes me feel a little bit less pressure when I'm pursuing a really difficult goal. Number 18, confidence is just a stack of evidence. Alex Hormozy, who's a really successful entrepreneur, says this, but confidence is essentially a stack of undeniable evidence proving to yourself that you are who you say you are. So for example, if I believe that I am somebody who is really healthy and cares about my body and works out, then how do I build confidence? Well, I build confidence by consistently showing up to the gym every day, even when I don't feel like it. And that proves to myself that, hey, I am who I think I am, and I am who I say I am. The sooner that you realize this, the easier it becomes to build confidence, because then I think you realize that confidence is really at the core, just keeping the promises, the little promises that you say to yourself that you're going to keep, right? Like if you say, hey, I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to eat healthy every day, and you do it, then you're going to be really confident because you know that you are who you say you are, and you know that you can commit to things. Number 19, it's okay to change. It's okay to change your views on life, because I think as you experience more, experience gives you wisdom, and so you learn things that maybe you previously didn't realize. And so sometimes I hear people say, oh, I used to be so like this way in college. And oftentimes I'll hear that and I'll think, well, in some ways it's okay, because do you really want to be stuck in the same mindset that you had when you were a student, even when you're like 40 years old? No, just because your views have changed from what they used to be doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means that you've grown. Number 20, life doesn't get any easier. I used to think as a kid that after I became an adult, I would have everything figured out, and my life would be pretty chill once I got a good job. And then I quickly realized that once I became an adult, the responsibilities multiplied, life became a lot harder. And as I get older, I've realized that the people who are older than me don't have it any easier either. My bosses at work probably work just as much, if not more, than I do. And so life doesn't get any easier, but you just get stronger as a person, and you become more resilient to the challenges that life throws you. Number 21, successful people fail more than they succeed. I don't know who needs to hear this, but the successful person that you see with the amazing resume or who built an amazing business is often the person that has failed the most. And the only reason why they're so successful today is because they were willing to fail so many more times than you. A person's resume is just a highlight reel of their successes, but it never emphasizes the amount of setbacks and failures that they went through in order to achieve that success. Now that I'm 25, I think I've really internalized this, and it was the reason why I was willing to start my YouTube channel, even though my initial videos were really terrible in quality, and I was embarrassed and afraid that people would make fun of me. But I still did it because I've now internalized that failure is just a prerequisite to success. Number 22, you underestimate what you can accomplish in 6 months. I think most people really underestimate what they can accomplish in a short amount of time, and they kind of overestimate what they can accomplish over a long period of time. So if you have a goal and you think that there's some unattainable milestone, I challenge you. For the next 6 months, commit yourself to doing something to move towards that goal every single day. And by the end of the 6 months, you will be amazed at what you can accomplish. In today's world, there's so many distractions that literally just being focused and able to do something at the same time for the same amount of time every single day to work towards a single goal has become almost like a rarity. And it's something that I would have wished my younger self would have realized a bit sooner so that I could have accomplished a lot more than I have at this point. Number 23, you are your own niche. There's always somebody that's going to be better than you at one thing. There's always going to be some person who's younger than you, who is smarter than you, more attractive than you, more athletic than you, more accomplished than you, more well-spoken than you, more charismatic than you. There's always someone who's better than you at one thing. But you as a person are multifaceted, and you have many different traits that are unique to you. And so the combination of those traits is uniquely and distinctly you. And so I think realizing that I am my own niche has given me a lot of confidence to put myself out there, because I've realized that although I may not be the most well-spoken or the most charismatic person or even the most hardworking, there is only one Matt Huang in this world, and there is only one person who is like me and has the same interests and the same skills and the same background. And so realizing that you have your unique strengths that you bring to the table, the sooner you realize this, the more confidence you will have to pursue your goals in life and to just take more risks. Number 24, delayed gratification is just choosing pain now over choosing pain later. When you delay gratification, yes, it sucks, but pain is inevitable. So we might as well choose to have the pain earlier rather than later in our life. And I think the most successful people in my life personally have really mastered the ability to delay gratification, because they've internalized that the pain is going to come either way. It's just either going to come now or it's going to come later. Number 25, going off of that last point, life is suffering. I think one of the biggest realizations that I've had now that I'm 25 and I've graduated school and I've been working in the workforce for a few years now is life is all suffering. It doesn't matter what you do, what path you choose, whether you're working or you're not, there's always going to be something that bothers you or that makes you unhappy. And you're never going to be like 100% happy and have zero negative feelings. That's just unreasonable. That's just not how life is. And so if we understand that life is suffering, then the question becomes, what should we be suffering for? And something that I'm personally trying really hard and grappling with nowadays is, what is a pursuit that is worth suffering for? Do I know the answer right now of what that is? No, but am I thinking about it a lot? Absolutely.